Lauren is a TV person. She started as an independent film producer. She built Bravo at NBCU. And now she got this new job last year that makes her not an operator as she used to be. You're overseeing Fandango and some operations, but she is now a
corporate
diplomat,
executive vice president.
Diplomat, but cross company.
Yep.
Diplomat, brand ambassador, persuader for all of NBCU's businesses to get on the ball digitally.
Yep. Yep.
So, what do you do? What is your day-to-day job?
Well, you just described it really well. I'm an advocate, I'm an educator, I'm a proselytizer, and you know, what's interesting is the first 10 or 12 years of my post-college career, I was on the sell side. I was an independent producer, I had an independent production company, and I was on the sell side. And through a series of just happenstance almost, I moved over to, you know, the buy side, meaning I went to work for a company. But I was well into my 30s, right? So at that point, I was taking a dip into working for a big company, but I always woke up every day and thought, you know, I wonder if I'm, you know, going to get my next gig, even though my next gig was at the office the next day. 15 years later, now I've been a hardcore operator. I have grown businesses, I have turned around businesses, I have kept businesses growing when they're at the top. Every day, anyone who's an operator knows what you are focused on. And then all of a sudden, this fluidity, first from film to television, seller to buyer, and now operator to corporate, it's just another piece of the learning experience about business. And the most dramatic thing that's kind of interesting and unexpected is that it's almost like shackles that I didn't know I had were thrown off by the drive for an individual P&L, no matter how big a, you know, $2 billion in revenue, which is what my P&L was. When you throw that off and you're really looking at what the company needs to do to expand and grow strategically in an area where it historically had not focused, that's what I actually get up and think about every day. And then there's 19 divisions and you know, hundreds of millions of viewers and users and billions of page views.
So and
that's what I synthesize every day.
Okay, that's great. We get a sense of what you do. And what is the opportunity here for companies, people in this Brainstorm Tech audience, whether they're building technology companies or they're big brand honchos, to get in on what you are building in terms of the ultimate cross-platform, on-demand experience for viewers?
Well, look, if you picture the future, like, it's great that we are past the argument of, are you a technology company? Remember, that was the whole discussion a few years ago. You had to define your company. You would ask the tech companies that, the platform companies. We're past that. We are an audience development company making compelling experiences everywhere people are going to be able to consume it. It's happening at our theme parks, which is highly digitally focused. It's happening at the movie studio, where digital distribution is transforming. And of course, it's happening at our gigantic television businesses. But through all of it, my vision would be to never have a standalone digital business, to just infuse all of the distribution opportunities, all of the monetization opportunities against a series of digital content, which is really the same as linear content, along a life of product that's under change.
I want to get specific here. What's a good example of what, you know, some advertiser who may be in the audience or some company that you're working with could get value out of what you're doing? Jim?
Pay us a lot of money to, no. Well, I mean, I don't know what the opportunity would be. If they could be creating content that we would distribute or advertise with us, but You know, because we do it at a very different scope than say, a YouTube or things that might be an easier path onto the internet. I mean, these are very expensive pieces of content to produce, and so, but it's extremely varied. And one of the things with our business is, you know, it's not just about TV ads online. It's also about, you know, having, being able to advertise your product, you know, at the exact point of a consumer's decision making, and that's the other thing that we look at, because the way online advertising is going, you either have super premium, or you have things that are in that vertical chain of decision making, kind of the funnel, or you're kind of, you know, going programmatic and you're competing against the rest of the web in abundance. And I think our job every day is to stand out from that abundance, and that's where we see value, and that's why we're growing.
Lauren?
Well, I would agree 100% and say two things. Number one is, we are such a big, diverse portfolio company. Our digital businesses today are unexpected, and some of them are things you wouldn't think about unless you experience them, like our Golf Now business, which is a 100% digital transactional business that books tens and tens of millions of tee times across the country for a fee. And its mobile network for booking these tee times has grown dramatically. Fandango is a 1.0 utility web business that used to sell movie tickets as a utility and has now transformed itself, growing something ridiculous like everyone experiences in mobile, over 100% in mobile video views year over year, with just devoting some resources to high quality talent, expertise, and distribution of things about movies instead of just the ticket. At the same time, I would say that when you look at the entrepreneur world and you treat it as sort of a development spectrum, it's very important to know what people are thinking about for other people. If people are thinking about how to get them cheaper and more shareable hotel spaces, and that's Airbnb, that is an interesting thing. And I'm sure people in the hotel industry, the linear hotel industry, are like, I should look at that, or TripAdvisor should think about that. The equivalent to me are entrepreneurial content deliverers or creators. So I'm very interested in strategically aligning the content that we're good at creating with the platforms that are being built for consumption, or with innovative content creators that might be a, you know, subscription clothing company, because I'm dominant in the young female space, and they consume that stuff. So I kind of treat it as a business development and real old-fashioned content development opportunity, and that also to me is the definition of digital for our company.
Who has a question? And please identify yourself. Do we have any questions yet? If we, over here, Hi,
Christy Fair, Vidicom, branded video content company. What is the future of branded content in the non-news divisions, and how are you going to take it cross-platform?
You're talking about branded content from the sponsored side?
From the sponsor, well, not necessarily sponsored, integrations.
Right. I mean, I think it's one of the fastest growing parts, you know, of internet video, especially highly produced internet video. So the future's very bright, and I think a lot of it's just getting started. And you know, we also are seeing, that's a great way for us to launch new brands. So for example, in the fall, we're launching CNET appliances, CNET in Espanol for the Latin American audience, and a new auto brand called XCar, which is really, you know, for true auto enthusiasts, because that's really one of the fastest growing parts of tech right now, is actually auto. We've seen it kind of merge into appliances, but now you're actually getting it into the car.
So what will XCar be?
And so it's a video-based brand that just has, I mean, it's almost car porn for people who are total, you know, car enthusiasts. The tagline is for the love of cars. And so for launch, we're actually doing that in conjunction with partners who we can't announce yet. And that's been a way to get that profitably off the ground from day one. And they're integrated right into that brand. But again, you see that in all kinds of places. In a lot of the new online, brands, coffee with comedians and cars and things like that. So I think the future is very bright, and we're always looking for partnering for these kinds of things.
I would only add, my pretty consistent drumbeat that I'm tired of the future. I'm all about today, and the future of branded entertainment is here today. What you mentioned, which is when you look across, Style Hall or full screen, and people compare, the new video platforms to early days of cable, and there's all sorts of parallels that I deeply believe in. One of it is just an innate scrappiness. You're just not at the same table with the grown-ups. And the other piece of my career was, I started in big movies, I went to small movies. I started in movies, I went to television. This is not a U-turn or a left turn in my career. I've always said and grown, digital brands as much as possible for, years when it wasn't in existence. So the branded entertainment opportunities that people are finding as individuals or as MCNs, advertisers are scrappy. They gotta get their message out there. They gotta find brand loyalists in new ways. And the platforms for branded entertainment, I think started years ago with the buzzword of authenticity, that you just got to embrace it and stop telling a story of 0 to 60 in X seconds and start telling the story of why it's a bespoke product that's mass produced for you. And I think the platforms have caught up to the trend in marketing that led to branded integration in the past decade or so.
Let's talk about some emerging platforms that could be opportunities or threats, and I want you to go here with me. I want very quick answers on each of the names that I'm going to throw your way. Netflix. Jim, quick.
Great partner for us. They're licensing a lot of our content, and I think the future is very bright for Netflix.
Lauren?
Awesome, ditto, great piece of the window that didn't exist a couple of years ago, and a personal plea to Reed Hastings to keep the long tail alive, which was one of the original promises of Netflix that I think is important to consumers for the long run.
Amazon.
Awesome, Prime customer, my shoes get there, the books for my kids, can't get enough of Amazon, love their video for the same reasons as Netflix.
Very jealous of Prime. It's a killer app for launching new products like that. So.
Aereo.
Under litigation, can't comment.
Ditto. You had to ask.
I had to ask.
That.
Google.
They're everywhere. I mean, they're for every single one of our brands. It's still the #1 way that people get to content online. I mean, I think 80%. I used to work in search. 80% of all sessions online still start as a search engine. So.
Awesome, scary. Can do anything they want. So well capitalized. Can't wait to see what blows us all away and makes us happy and makes us mad.
What company worries you most?
Nielsen.
Why?
Because the whole ecosystem of the new and the traditional are needing to partner with a company that's moving as fast as it can, but is highly reliant on difficult technology, difficult people, consumers, and an ecosystem that highly dependent on one company has a big burden, a lot of partners, and that's why.
I'd say Apple as a corollary of that. So we launched our iPad app in March. It's gone, taken off like crazy, and so much. You can see how much of our distribution will be through mobile in the future. But again, things like Nielsen have not been integrated in the past. Really, from our point of view, it doesn't matter where someone watches it, as long as it's measured.
And Apple worries you most why?
Well, it's been difficult to get measurement through mobile, because from an advertiser's point of view, you know, they need to know the total scope of the audience, and you want to make sure you have it. But also, just from being the gatekeepers for distribution for all of that.
So tomorrow, my colleague Miguel Helft, who most of you know by now, has a really fantastic cover story that will be released tomorrow. So go to fortune.com to read it. But it's all about YouTube emerging as a mainstream entertainment platform. And you know, a lot of this is jumping off the news. DreamWorks buying Awesomeness TV, a big YouTube programmer, for $33 million. Time Warner leading and invests a $36 million investment for Maker Studios. We heard from Courtney Holt yesterday, and I actually have gotten permission from Miguel and the editors to just share a little bit with you, and I would love your response. Miguel says, YouTube is not about to kill off television, but here's a fact: Americans have their TV sets on for 34 hours a week, according to Nielsen, and they watch 1 hour of video on the internet per week. But 18 to 24 demo, 23 hours watching TV, 21 and a half hours of online video watching. So Miguel says if the first era of television was broadcast TV with a few channels, the second era, cable television with hundreds of channels, the new era is the web incarnation with tens of thousands of channels tailored to niche audiences. YouTube is a distribution platform, an organizing form, and the next generation, Comcast, Time Warner Cable, and Cox Cable, rolled into one. Not only that, it is an open platform, a sandbox for people, anyone, to create their own content, and YouTube to take half the revenues.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean? Do you agree with this, and what does that mean for you?
Well, look, it's certainly, I mean, especially with my kids, it's one of the main things that they consume in a given day. It's taking up a huge new percentage of their time. And I watch a lot of things on YouTube. And, you know, again, I think what I said earlier, abundance is kind of the major issue. But if you go back in time, you know, don't ask me why I was reading a book called The Jackie Gleason Story. They make you do that at CBS. It's part of the indoctrination. But they were talking about how in the early 50s on a movie set, they wouldn't allow televisions on the movie set because movie producers were so paranoid of TV, taking out movies. And if you just go back to, you know, radio, to movies, to television, to the internet in general, really, none of this has think about how strong our radio division is still today, even with online radio. And so really, at the end of the day, in some way, consumers are finding time for all of this. And you just have to start wondering where that's all coming from.
I think it's a nascent business. It's brackish water today. There's fresh water and there's salty water, and they're meeting at this place called YouTube. We are watching, well, you know, I usually don't subscribe to the using your kids as focus group theory. My eldest of 3 graduated from high school in the spring, and she asked for a graduation present, and that graduation present is to attend VidCon next week.
To attend what?
VidCon, which is
VidCon.
the YouTubers convention, and it's, you know, very. And
are you going with her?
I was already going to Industry Day, and then she's staying on as a fan to get YouTubers, you know, selfies and. Okay, so so what I would say is, I do believe there's a lot of similarities between the thing called YouTube, which, by the way, is a host right now for animals called Maker, animals called Machinima. It's a host animal for the beginnings of cable channels, right? Because you aren't a creator, you don't get to call yourself a cable channel. People who actually develop and create content, they can call themselves that, and then when they have 2 revenue streams, which is what built cable against the broadcast dominance, then you can take another step forward. But today, the similarities are too much choice, and everyone's saying there's too much choice, nobody wants that. That was 30 years ago. Amateur content, nobody wants that. That was also 30 years ago. Advertisers will never want that. That was also 30 years ago. So those are big similarities. The dissimilarities are the finances, which were very strong at the very dawn of cable. So that's a big separator. I think that when you think about all those billions of views on YouTube, there's a user-generated piece, and there's also a high-quality traditional broadcasters piece. When you look at, Jimmy Fallon on YouTube, he doesn't just make that up. That's coming from a highly organized, high production value place. So I think the brackish water is, we'll figure out professional and amateur. We have to figure out financially advertising and subscription. And most importantly, the reason I think it is, to use a youthful phrase, it's all good, is because when there's that much energy around audience consumption, you have to be there with what you do for a living, and you will find a way to commercialize it if you've been good at that in all your other enterprises.
Great. Who else has a question? Do we, back here? Yes? Uh-huh.
Hi, Sharon Waxman from the Rap. Hi, guys. Jim, when you spoke at our conference last year, you were clear that CBS's strategy vis-a-vis other networks was distinct and smarter in the sense that you guys were holding on to your own IP, bringing readers into CBS.
You mean not doing Hulu?
Pardon me?
You mean from the not doing Hulu?
Yeah,
strategy, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd like to revisit that question and see if you still feel the same way now that Disney and Fox and NBCU, who didn't make that decision, but are holding on to Hulu, and now that those original content is just crowding quickly and quality content onto those platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the notion of competing against ourselves with another website that would have our content on it versus having people come to CBS.com to watch it is still fundamental to the strategy of not entering into that partnership. And CBS.com is the #1 network site. Its growth is it's a rocket ship in terms of growth. And and again, we get 100% of the ad revenues from what we sell on that site. And it's basically sold out in almost all times. So, so I think, yes, we are absolutely committed to that strategy and think that it's working great for us.
One more question?
Oh,
Lauren,
sure.
comment on that? Sure.
Well, you know what? I actually think that it's incredibly healthy for media companies that sort of look the same to an outsider. Anyone who remembers that there was once CBS Animal and NBC Animal and ABC Animal and Fox Animal, and those were the 4 things that sort of looked the same. It is actually really important and essential for every company to have its mandate, because they are not exactly like every other company. So I actually believe that you can have 2 right answers, and the better a company knows itself, the less it'll chase the other animals around. At the same time, particular to this issue around our huge television shows and where we monetize them and where people view them, I think we're in for another couple of years of change and formation that we don't quite know about yet in the form of TV everywhere, because that's actually happening. Our deals are set. It will roll out by the end of 2014, and that will force a lot of viewing and a lot of monetization discussions about our full episode, highest rated, medium rated, lowest rated shows. Everything will be available through that means, and that'll take it all together, and I think will morph in the next couple of years.
Sharon, I will say, there's a difference between Hulu and Hulu Plus, where we will
Right.
license content. It's a subscription business versus first day after air, free, competing sales forces, which is something that we stay away from.
Our time is up. It's all good.
It's all good.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank
Pattie.
you, Jim.
Thanks, Patty.
Okay. Great to have you. And now